Can you guys hear me through this one? Let me see. I can't tell if you guys can hear me through this microphone or not. Can you guys say something in the chat if you guys can hear me with this microphone or no? If y'all can't hear me with this mic, I'm gonna swap over and grab a different one. Can you guys let me know if you hear me? Okay. Well, good to see. Well, I know one of you is here. You're a bad influence on my wallet, by the way. All right. Thanks, you guys. It's not giving me any prompt on my end about if the microphone is coming through. But good to see the three of y'all here. I've got Henry NWR3, Oscar Guerrero, and Saddle Tank Studios. How you guys doing? How y'all holding up with this pandemic lockdown? Because I'm going stir crazy. So I know I ran a poll on Twitter asking what you guys wanted me to show off. Let me pull up that poll real quick. Well, it would help if I had my Twitter page open, wouldn't it? Henry, I don't know how you're tired, but I think I could hazard a couple of guesses. Well, good to hear you're doing great, and 3 new Playreal engines, Saddle Tank. What are they, if you don't mind me asking? You got me curious now. Let's see. Oh, Twitter, why do you always make things messy? Let's see, where is that poll that I put out? Ba-ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba. Chrome, that's not what I asked you to do. I didn't ask you to cover up my screen. I'm asking you to just show me the results of that poll I ran. You got the 3 newer releases before Gina, Lorenzo, and Beppe. So you got Yang, Bao, Red Rosie, and Rebecca. Which one is your personal favorite then? Because I don't know if I'm going to jump on getting Red Rosie anymore. Let me see. Here's my poll. Everyone wants to see Takara Tomy. Why am I not surprised? Well. Good to see you, Tom Man 256. As far as buying any Playrail engines, no, I don't think I've bought any in the past year or two. I guess I just haven't seen any that really caught my attention. I was thinking about Red Rosie, but I don't think I'm going to be paying, $30 just for a single engine. I am trying to just get her brand new loose, so that way I can have her in my collection, but I'm not going to be buying or investing in any more Playrail stuff. So Saddle Tank, you like Rebecca because she's the most proportional out of the 3. Okay, I mean, that's fair. She did get chosen after an interesting class. So how many Southern engines does that make on Sodor? I think she makes the 3rd one, because first we had, I think it was Neville. It was either Neville or Rosie, one of the two, and then she came in. Well, anything from Playrail is definitely better than Trackmaster. I can say that with good confidence. But, there's very little that you can do in fighting changes that come from Fisher-Price to Playrail. I guess that kind of puts the show into perspective as well. So it is a little bit weird. It is a little bit weird having her so disproportionate. So Tom Man 256 is saying, who is my favorite Playrail characters of Thomas and Friends? Who is my favorite? Ooh. Man, you just threw me that curveball, because Playrail has had such an outstanding cast. So, Tom, are you asking about before PlayRail went from roughly 40 engines down to no more than about 25? Or are you doing it kind of by era when they would manufacture all the classic series characters, meaning from the Railway series like Donald Douglas, Oliver, and then they just kind of focused on the CGI ones? Or are you just saying all of them in general? Southern. Yeah, Thomas is Southern, but to me, he doesn't really count. He doesn't really count because, okay, all-time character. Ooh, I'm gonna have to settle for Oliver. I mean, his PlayRail model was not the best, but it's the only one that's out there. And I mean, after a couple of modifications, you can get it to look like Oliver from season 6. As far as my least favorite, I'd have to say Belle. I mean, she's probably a little bit less detailed than the Fisher-Price counterpart. I mean, the Fisher-Price one is much more chunky, but she looks to me and feels like Belle. But the PlayRail rendition of Belle was just not the greatest, and she could have used a lot of work in comparison to the Fisher-Price Trackmaster version. So those have to be my favorites. I think I did do a video on my channel, like top 10 videos. So I can definitely say that Oliver took number 1 for me. Okay, Henry, I'll agree with you that Steven's Tender is bad in PlayRail, but he does carry the Earl's crest on him. That much I can say. That for me is like a really good thing, is that he has the crest. Well, Oscar, I'm not going to disagree with you on Yang Bao. Yang Bao has a lot of faults to him, but in comparison to the Fisher-Price version, PlayRail is leagues better. Okay, well, Belle did have moving side rods, but in the show, they're much more complex than, say, James or Percy. So that's why I kind of prefer the Fisher-Price one, as you can see kind of the complex design in the side rods being incorporated into them being stationary. It's like what they did with Murdoch and Hank. But, everyone's got to have their own preferences. Good to see a PRR fan. I mean, if you want, and this is just for you, PRR fan, I can get out my N-Scale 1361 and have her set up here. I can just get some track laid out, but you go ahead and let me know. So, Tom, man, you're telling me that Oliver would be your personal favorite. Do you actually have Oliver in your collection or no? I'm just curious about that at this point. Frisco. Let's see. Call me typical, but the Trackmaster 2 tender engines suck with the molding. All of them do. Well, I don't remember if I ever said this publicly, but I will now. When I first saw the 2.0 line back in 2014, I looked at it and I said they look like racing tractors, which is really, really sad. Okay. Okay, so PRR fan, if you'll give me a little bit, I'll get some tracks set up and I'll go grab the 1361. But let me get through some of these comments. Saddle Tank, the only time I can really say Fisher-Price engine is better than PlayRail is Nia. Yes and no. I can't really ascertain that for certain because I'm not going to get her. She's a corporate sellout. UN, if you're listening and or watching, get your nose out of kids' shows, please, and start running the world. Thank you. Okay, Tom, man, I'm going to have to agree. I do feel sorry that you don't have Oliver. I don't have any spares, and sadly, I'm not letting go of mine. Mine was a gift from a family member. But yeah, Oliver, I think you can see my earlier videos before I detailed him. Oliver had a lot of things that weren't really too good for him, but he, for me, fits in proportionally to the series for the Tucker Tomy PlayRail line. And, I have to say, I really did enjoy that. Okay, Frisco, you do have a good point. I mean, look, I'll say this about Big World, Big Adventures. I remember talking to, I think it was Henry that I was talking to about Journey Beyond Sodor. I turned off Journey Beyond Sodor 15 minutes in. And that's because I was bored and I was sleepy. I woke up at around 2 in the morning to a message on my phone that someone had sent me a jailbroken copy of Journey Beyond Sodor. With Big World, Big Adventures, I turned it off in less than 2 minutes. And then I just watched the thing with mute on. I just muted it and I said no. Okay, Oscar. If the Trackmaster Nia had the wheels and face of the Playrailer one, it would be perfect in your opinion. I don't know if you've got a Twitter, Oscar, but if you go into my YouTube profile, you can send me some pictures of the Trackmaster Nia face. That way you can kind of tell me what you're talking about. Every picture I see, they just focus on her detailing, not so much her face. Frisco. Duchess is an atrocity. Let me explain. She's based on the Duchess of Sutherland, who was the royal engine at the time. Okay, so funny thing you should mention royal engines. I've got a fun fact for you here, Frisco. Let me see if I can get this set up without killing myself. You guys are probably going to hear a little bit of a loud noise, so I apologize. Yeah, you guys are going to hear a loud noise. Hang on. Okay, that should fix it. So, Frisco, for you, you were saying that Duchess is based on the Duchess of Sutherland from 2002 to 2005. Here's the funny thing. LMS 6201, the Princess Elizabeth, was actually on standby for the royal train back at the time. I do think that the Princess Lizzie pulled it later on, but I don't know, to be honest with you. Yeah, I've seen the render for Duchess. She's... I don't know what the hell they did with her. She was just out of there. I would have preferred if they would have used like Lizzie or actually modeling the Duchess of Sutherland, because then that could bring in an actual steam engine from Britain and kind of be a stronger representation. So that's just my opinion. So Saddle Tank, you like Rajiv or Shane? I'm gonna have to say I prefer Shane's locomotive basis. I've seen video of it here on YouTube a lot, and obviously if you look up Scotsman in Australia, you're going to see Shane's basis running. So I obviously did enjoy seeing it. I'm obviously never going to be able to go to Australia. So what is the best season and the worst season of Thomas and Friends? Okay. Season 17 to 20 CGI or models? I'm going to be biased because I grew up with the models. I'm going to say the models for me were the best. I mean, everyone's going to say season 4 was like the peak. I'm not going to say that season 4 wasn't the peak, but, you know, hey, it worked out very well that you felt like Sodor was a real place. Worst season, it was either season 14 or 15, whichever one had Flynn Thomas's firebox on fire. I think that was season 15. It had to be 15. So Frisco's saying on Duchess she was going to be dark red, and then apparently she had to be white with an LNE or corridor tender. I think someone on Twitter actually brought this up, that the LMS did have corridor tenders, and it was installed on an LMS Black 5, so a mixed freight or mixed traffic engine. So, okay, Frisco, I'll agree. Your comment on what they did is true. And Henry is asking, can we do a watch party on Netflix for the new Thomas and the Royal Engine? I'm not doing a watch party. I don't believe in Netflix, and I don't really care to see the new Thomas and Friends stuff. If I'm going to watch it, it's just because YouTube decides to recommend it to me. So, you know. PRR fan, you're asking my favorite Playrail model. I know Tom asked this earlier. I'm going to reiterate my question for it again. Are you talking throughout all of PlayRail, or are you just speaking for the eras, like the model eras or the CGI series eras? So if you can give me the answer on that, that'd be good. Thomas's firebox was on fire. The only time an engine's firebox being on fire would make sense is if the firelighter dropped the shovel that had the oil-soaked rag or the newspapers or whatever, and that spread to like the coal bunker, because then that can get the firebox, the cab, and the coal bunker all on fire. At the same time, what do you expect? The firebox is going to be on fire. There is a fire on the inside of it. And Henry, don't give me that sad emoji. You know I don't care for Netflix. But yeah, so there is that. As I did promise PRR fan earlier, I'm going to grab some track and then my N-scale model of the Pennsylvania Railroad's Pacific, the 1361. So if you guys will excuse me just a quick sec, I'll be right back. Okay. So, Oscar, you're giving me a pretty good question. What is my favorite model train that I own? Are you talking like N scale, 00 scale, or HO scale? Do you want one from each, or are you just saying out of all the scales that I've collected, which has to be my personal favorite? Okay, so Duke, you are asking me what is my favorite season 1 through season 12 era model. I'm going to counter this again with another question. Damn, I'm terrible at this. Are you asking model series, like Railway series characters, and then, you know, like new era Hitmiller characters? And then with that, are you going steam engines, diesels, or rolling stock? Yeah, no, they're not doing much with Duchess at all. They're just cutting it poorly. Okay. Do I have any old PlayRail Gordons? If you're talking about the C-Cell Gordon, Tom Man, yes, I do have the C-Cell PlayRail Gordon. He is safely tucked away. That way nothing bad can happen to him, and so he is safe. Oscar, to answer your question, I actually have a tie. So in N scale, I have the 16 car set of a Japanese bullet train, one of the current running versions, the N700A. I got the 4-car set as a gift from my father when we were actually in Japan. We went to the Kato store in Kyoto and they had this set for sale and he got it for me as a gift. The second train that goes up there is actually going to be one I got last year as a gift from my father. I got the, you can't really see it, but he's tucked away right here. It's going to be the limited edition of the Flying Scotsman as he was preserved back in 2004. So in the LNER apple green with the German-style smoke deflectors. And I'll be probably doing a video on that. That'll probably be releasing in May for sure. And then you can't really see it, so I'll move these out of the way. You can barely make out the tag right here, but I can tell you right now it is the Broadway Limited Imports Big Boy locomotive, and it is number 4014 with the oil tender. So yeah, Tom, man, I do have the old PlayRail Gordon. If you do want me to pull him out so that way you can see him, go ahead and let me know. Just drop that comment in there. Henry's enjoying seeing Percy, but Percy does not like running. PRR fan, a lot of people are going to agree with you on Duchess. Andrew, hi, good to see you there. Let's see. The Duke, you're saying mostly overall can be any steamer. There's actually quite a lot. I love Oliver and Toad. They just look perfect together. I do like Neville. I do like the Q1 basis. I also do like Murdoch. The Evening Stars are not the Evening Stars. The 9Fs are an unusual kind of freight locomotive for me. So I do like that design. Obviously, I'm going to say I like Hank, of course, America. But Hector and Rocky are definitely some of the freight car rolling stocks that I do enjoy the most. Fearless Freddy for narrow gauge, I think, had to be the one. Because growing up, I mean, I didn't know that much about the Tally Flynn Railway. Going to YouTube, I've seen them all in action. You could never tell me to pick a favorite from them. Prince from the Welsh Highland Railway, I'm obviously going to think of Duke, so yeah. Let's see. American TTE fan, good to... American TTTE fan, sorry, good to see you. Duchess's face, I don't know if I would say it feels off. It just doesn't feel proper. So I really don't know what to make of it. Tom Mann, who's the best and worst character ever of Thomas? Best... I really can't choose best because when I look at a character, I look at their design, I look at the development they've had in the series, and I also look at the model. So I'm obviously going to be a little bit more biased towards Oliver and Toad. So for me, those are the best characters of Thomas. The worst ever has to be Philip and Billy. So Philip and Billy are absolutely the worst. Okay, Tom, man, I'll get Gordon out for you. Hank, the PRR fan. The glare is not helping, but you can see it is the 1361. I will get her pulled out for you if she wants to come out of the box. Let me see. Okay, Henry, thanks for the comment of Mark. Yeah, we're not doing too well over here. Oh, well, she's got life breathed into her. Oh, you actually can see the K4. Okay, never mind. Let's get her lights turned on. Well, V light. And I don't know, PRR fan, can you tell me if you can hear this engine? I don't know if you can hear her. American Thomas the Tank Engine fan, I don't know who Sam Elliott is. If you can tell me who Sam Elliott is, maybe that'll help me kind of figure out whether or not they should have voiced Bo. But I feel kind of disappointed that they used the American 440. I mean, they called it the American style locomotive, so okay. Okay, perfect, you're a fan. Okay, Gordo, where are you? Not there. Oh. There it is. You feel that the logging locos are just the worst, or some Miller era characters. Now, I'm not going to lie that some characters from the Sharon Miller era were not the best. Ferdinand, I feel, had the most potential out of the three. Bash and Dash were just not necessary. Duke of Sodor, I'm going to agree the streamlined Coronation class are gorgeous. But I think at the same time, if they had to go with a Royal locomotive, they should have gone with a Royal Scot and just dedicated it to it. But I'm sure they're just saying, hey, get it made and put it out there for the audience, which I'm not going to guarantee this. I'm sure some Thomas fans are going to be remaking or redoing the Royal engine. So only time will tell. And then let's see. Tom, man, if you're still there, this is the C-cell battery Gordon still sitting in his box. I haven't really run my PlayRail stuff in I think a little over a year or two. I do not know if that's going to change in the future. So that's all I've got to say on that. He's the guy who was in that Doritos ad with the Old Town Road, you know. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, I know who you're talking about. I don't know. I guess I'm a little bit weird on that front of saying whether or not he should have voiced him, but at the same time, it all boils down to money. Like, they got Hugh Bonneville to voice Merlin. They could not have done anything better. Good to see you, True Blue. Sunny for season 24. Who's Sunny? I haven't really been keeping up on that, so. Yeah. You don't run them once in the PlayRail engines. What do I think of the latest PlayRail motor? Do you mean the new one that they're kind of forcing everyone into? Or... Because, Tom, if you're talking about the PlayRail redesigned motor that most of the new engines are being fit into, that's been around since 2015. It's pretty okay. It's not the best, it's not the worst. There are some engines that could have done better with a different kind of motor, but for some it worked out well. It's actually still a good, reliable motor, so I can't really complain. Okay. Okay, Duke, I'm going to have to agree with your comments, yeah. Okay, American, I do know Sonny now. I remember him. I do like his look. I really hope that they scale him up properly for this. But, you know, only time will tell. Only time will tell. I'm really... Let me see. Let me take a look. So this one, yeah? Yeah, no, I like the design of his basis. I just don't know what to think about the character. One thing I am hoping is if they do go with it, that they try to make him sound like the country he came from, like how they made Connor and Caitlin sound Irish, to kind of pay homage to the immigrants that built those engines. As far as Emily being the number 12, I am going to be a little bit irritated about that. That just feels like they're catering to the fans, and that they're finally just saying, okay, put a number on her tender to shut them up. I prefer her tender being the way it is. And I think the Sterling singles actually had their numbers on the cab. So if they had a small, like, N, capital N, 0, period, and then the number 12 on the sides of her cab, I'd be okay with it, but not just slapped on her tender. That, for me, is just not cool. I really need to go back to England to go to that railway museum. I went to the one in York, but not the one in Shieldon. I don't know how I feel about Marvelous Machinery. I wonder if they decide to bring in or reintroduce Hugo in Marvelous Machinery. I'm not going to be happy. So, Tom, man, I'm actually going to agree with you. I feel Ryan would have benefited with a different motor, like the motor that they put inside their stock standard Thomas is that bulkier motor. That one would have done him better, because then they could have extended him on his boiler front and not kind of made him all squashed and chunky. So I know Connor and Caitlin with the new motors design, it worked out well for them. It makes them larger in comparison when you kind of look at them or have them in your hands. So I think it would really be good if they would take a moment to pause and look at the engine and say, what motor can we use, rather than just slapping in their new generic one. If we have Thomas in America, we need the 611 to appear. You and your 611 love, man. Come on. Come on. It's always about the big boy. Always. Sonny's Second Chance is his debut episode. I wonder how they'll pull that off. How are they going to make it his second chance if it's his debut episode? That's what I want to know. Rebecca or Nia, one shall stay, one shall be scrapped. Scrap Nia and repaint Rebecca. I would like a Brunswick green livery, or Sodor's iteration of a Brunswick green livery. Maybe then they can actually make her look a bit more respectable than being a big yellow engine. You've had Molly, you've got Bill and Ben, you've got Duncan. Try to do something a little more, I wouldn't say out there for a color, but nothing that makes her like a joke. If it was in season 8, you think it would be okay? I don't know, because she was introduced season 6 or season 7. And they were trying to use season 8 to really revolutionize the show, which I don't think worked. What do I think of Kenji? Him being a series 0? I really don't know. I like the inclusion of the bullet train, and I'm hoping this marvelous machinery will be like Thomas going to York and meeting the railway, the National Railway Museum's collection. I mean, there you've got plenty of engines. You can just repaint Spencer to Mallard's colors. You can have Murdoch reintroduced to the show if they decide to render Evening Star. You know, it's just a whole lot of different opportunities, all of which I know Fisher-Price will not take advantage of. So as far as Kenji, I'm hopeful optimistic. I hope they do what they did with Hero, where they get a Japanese gentleman to voice Kenji. American says, I'd love to see Thomas on the New York Central with some Niagaras and Hudsons, though not necessarily the streamlined ones. I think it would be a good idea to show both versions of the Hudsons if that was to happen, but at the same time, you know, kind of show off the rivalry between New York Central and the Pennsylvania. Well, Saddle Tank, you bring up a good point, but how would he get scrapped is my question. Because of this, depending on where they put the show in a year for its setting, it could either be the privatization where Barry Island Scrapyard exists and they're rescuing preserved engines. That could probably be a good story. NWR Thomas 25. What can you say about the Playrail Thomas range of today versus before? Before, definitely good to see you here. Before I answer your question, I should say, great to have you here. What I can say about the range before, it was definitely much more vast. It was much more readily available for you to get whatever characters you wanted. And the boxes were also a bit more, I would say, lavish or ornate, because you had model series pictures from most, if not all, of the characters. And nowadays, it's all just going to be CGI promo. It's the same CGI background, and it's just more generic than anything. So I would say the previous range, before they shrank it down and condensed it to 20 to 25 engines in pieces of rolling stock, was significantly better, the range before that reduction. I really hate to say that, Rebecca. I have to agree with you, American. she's just become a joke, in all honesty. She doesn't really seem to fit in. And it's hard to find new characters that fit in. If you guys have watched the Unlucky Tugs season 20 review and on Soder's Legend of the Lost Treasure, he says that Ryan just fits in this universe. And he's right. Ryan just kind of naturally feels like an engine that, who knows, maybe the Reverend would have introduced him, but we will never know. And I think that's where Fisher-Price is struggling. They're trying to figure out an engine to put into the show that kids will want to see more of. It's like when they reintroduced Daisy. All of a sudden, she had a huge boost in popularity, kind of like Oliver, Toad, and Duck, Donald and Douglas. It's just a big hit and miss kind of feature. Duke, I'm still going to stand on where I'm at with this. It is that I want them to put Emily's number on her cab in a small fashion like the real Sterling single has it. It's not slapped on the tender words huge and bulky and distracting. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for. I've got to keep hydrated, otherwise I'm going to lose my voice. By the looks of it, it'll just be the inventor woman whose big brain idea was to isolate herself. Oh, you mean Ruth? I really don't know what they're trying to do with the show at this point. It just feels bad. It's just not Thomas. It's like Chuggington with Thomas characters, and I don't like that. Hank and Connor would be fun to see in an episode as rivals. I think it would be good, but at the same time, Connor would unreasonably not like Hank, because if you followed the history, the Pennsylvania Railroad actually bought out the New York Central. So I guess Pensy is better. How do you do, Texas Train Master? Good to have you here. Mr. Big Shot Kicker. Stefano is just a mess. Why are we bringing up characters that we don't need to? I tried my best to forget that he doesn't even exist. So, yeah, Stefano, I don't even know what he is. I don't even know if there's a vehicle that he's supposed to be based off of. So yeah, Tom Man 256. Emily is getting a number, and that's been revealed due to coloring pages from, I don't know if it's a coloring book or the official website, but I don't know how I feel about her getting that number, the number 12. True Blue, you're commenting saying, I mean, what else can they really do with Ryan at this point? That thing that made him relatable to the viewing audience was him being a pushover towards engines like Daisy. It's not just him being a pushover, it's him wanting to be a good friend, him wanting to help out, be, you know, useful, and kind of fit in. But, I mean, you can even think about it with the missing breakdown train. He tried his best to help out, and that's something you really can't push away from people. American, yes, Ruth is irritating, she is annoying, and she probably wouldn't even fit in Bob the Builder. Maybe Chuggington would be suitable for her. Texas Train Master is saying the Thomas and Friends series was when George Carlin narrated. You have to pick and choose from every current season. So it can be problematic, but at the same time, you can find narrators who do such a good, passionate job with it in the narration. NWR Thomas 25. What do I think about Lorenzo and Beppe? If I could stop hitting my table, that'd be helpful. I like Lorenzo's bases. I like his colors. I do not like the dynamic between the both of them. I did watch the episodes with them. I wanted to kind of see how they do the Italian culture. Well, it is definitely a toxic relationship. I mean, people have said that it's a toxic relationship. We know it's a toxic relationship. And I'm not surprised that they represented that. Now, I wish they would kind of address it. Because, I mean, you could make a good few episodes on just Lorenzo and Bepe's relationship and have them find a way to address it in a manner that kids can understand. So, the Duke, your comment is about Rebecca. Rebecca could work with yellow, but they had too many saturated colors in her design. The orange and navy are too bright and fight with the yellow. Take out the orange and make the navy black. Boom, nice aesthetic. It makes her look like a banana. And I'd much rather a Brunswick green. Tom Mann, you're saying you don't think Emily needs a number. I agree. Mr. Big Shot Kicker, the other big engine is Hifo Thomas in Brazil. I have not watched it. I don't think I plan on watching it. I've steered away from Thomas since Big World, Big Adventures. And I just don't know what to say about it. It's not Thomas anymore. American. If the show lasts long enough, you'll try to get in there. I am actually going to throw out a name. I'm sure you guys have all watched Carson Maranka's video workshop. I think this was before I got into the lockdown with this pandemic. I was casting, I think it was Reckless Redemption to my TV downstairs while eating lunch, and my mother came down and she asked if that was an official episode. So Carson, if you're watching or someone mentions you about this, your work is good enough to fool my parents. So definitely kudos to you, my friend. I do love watching Carson stuff. TARDIS Rescue Enterprising Engines 93. There are a lot of people whose content I watch and wish, I could purchase for my own private entertainment. Let's see. Emily, I don't know if your comment, Tom Mann, that says, quote, but the way they had her at first was perfect. She was nice but bratty, but now she's 2D, unquote. I don't know if you're talking about Emily. I do agree with you that she was a little bit bratty. I'd like to see more of that bratty side of her come out. It would be nice. It would definitely be something to really show off and push out there. It's like, hey, remember how Emily began. Oscar, what do I think about Mark Morgan? I want him back. I really, really want him back. Like, when Michael Brandon left, I was kind of happy about it. At the same time, I was a little bit upset. I was like, Brandon did his best. You could tell he was passionate, but not everyone accepted him. I was one that was like, I don't know how I feel about it. Some episodes he was fantastic. Other episodes he was cringeworthy, but you could tell he was having fun with this. Mark Morgan is just, he's the kind of person you would want to hear narrating this show. From season 16 through the absolute end of what I will consider Great Thomas. So we'll say season 21. Season 21 had some hit and miss. No. No, he was still there for season 21. So he's absolutely by far one of the best narrators we've had. Let me see. Do I still have that big boy? Yes, I do. If my supplies would not fall over. He's safely tucked away in his box. I just don't have the space to set him up out here right now. You love how all of Italy's most famous monuments are in one general spot in the middle of nowhere. I'll agree with you on that. I actually have climbed the Leaning Tower of Pisa. I got to go to Italy a little over 4 years ago now. And we got to walk all the way up to the top. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. They do have it fenced off up to a certain height when you're at the top, so that way you can't fall out. And they've even fenced some parts of it so that way you can't try to jump out of the very small windows. American. Gustavo is a Brazilian character based on an American logo. He wouldn't happen to be based on a GG1, would he? If he is, someone please kill me. I do not like their render. I agree, Oscar. We do need a play rail Richard. We absolutely need him. Okay, Tom, man. Okay, good thing I managed to hit the nail on the head with my opinions about Emily. NWR Thomas, your comment says Mattel is just milking the franchise dry since Big World, Big Adventures. The stories are more questionable. The toys are not good. Yeah. It's bad for me to say this. I wish Disney had bought Thomas and Friends because they probably would have had people who knew what they were doing, who would look and respect the history of the show. And the fact that Mattel lost someone who loved the series, Andrew Brenner, they lost Andrew Brenner, is a big no-no for them. He is a guy who knew the show, he knew the fans, and the fact that they let him leave is sad. Tom, they kicked Mark for Thomas, as always. So... Oscar, you're saying clips of released recently of Mark narrating the old Railway series stories. I have seen some of those dubs on Twitter. I have actually retweeted some of those edits. When do they start releasing him recording and dubbing over the classic series with the classic series music? Mattel? Notes? Digital restoration? Sell? Now? Chinedem Emmanuel, good to have you here. Do I still use the play rails? Not as often. I've been, well, before the coronavirus broke out, I'd been focusing more at work, so YouTube took a big back burner blow. Thank you, Gmail, for rudely interrupting me. But maybe in future, if I'm still stuck here looking for work, I might film some play rail videos. I just don't know yet. But on occasion, and it's very rare, I do pull out the play rails just to do some detailing on them. Duke, I agree. We don't need more of Thomas talking. We get enough of screen time with him. We don't need to have him there. We want Mark. Mark was one of the best, and I would say he ranks up there as the best modern-day Thomas and Friends narrator. So PRR fan, Gustavo is based on a Little Joe. Isn't that from the Milwaukee Railroad? The only reason I'm asking is because Kato USA put out a poll a while back about what big engine they wanted to see. They had the Little Joe from Milwaukee, the Lorem Rail Grinder, the UP Centennial, and then a UP Big Boy. So... yeah, okay, I figured. Well, I mean, they already had a Russian character. His name is Ivan. With him being a diesel, I bet he runs on vodka. Emmanuel, do my Bachmann trains have couplings? Some of them do. Some of them actually do. Percy is one that will not. This model does not run very well. But I'll take this brake van here that I got in Britain. It does have the chain link couplings. That is courtesy of recommendations from, I think it's Sodor Railway Modeling, Steven on Twitter with the PH. So I have incorporated that into a lot of my engines and coaches, and there's a lot more that needs to be purchased in regards to couplings as well, to just kind of put them all in my collection. Let me see, I'm missing some comments. Tom Man, yeah. Mattel has been corporate for years. They've been losing sales, and they're kind of looking at like, what's wrong? Why don't the customers like this? And yet they're not listening to the consumer. Disney would be a godsend, but at the same time, some people are saying Disney is not. Look at what they did with the new Star Wars trilogy. NWR Thomas, here's my answer. If I meet Sam Wilkinson, he can come to Texas so I can beat the life out of him. I do not appreciate what he's done. If he really has that small of an ego to take models of characters that fans love and put them in a place where they're never going to be cared for just to spite us, that is childish. Extremely childish. Sam, if you're watching, grow up and grow a pair. American, yeah, I'll agree. The DuckTales reboot is pretty good. Not just because David Tennant is in it, but modern day references, memes. And then Emmanuel, do I have a favorite Thomas and Friends Bachmann engine? Ooh. This is sacrilegious. Well, for me anyway. It is this big fella. It is Henry. I bet you all were expecting me to say Oliver, but no, I do not like Oliver in the Bachmann model. So Henry definitely won it for me. When I got him, I felt like I had Henry from the show. He is just that good. Could I imagine Warner Brothers in charge of Thomas? They're still around? Well, do they even produce any more kids shows is my question. Ivan looks like a Soviet den. There are some similarities in Ivan's basis and Den's basis, but he doesn't look like a Russian version of Den. Ivan looks like an interesting standalone character. And I think the way they flushed him out with Mark Morgan doing the narration for those little episodes of the Great Race engines returning to their home countries was really well done. He gave Ivan life. True Blue. While losing Andrew Brenner as a head writer is upsetting, especially as he wanted to move on to other projects, you're impressed with David Stoughton's writing. I don't think I've seen anything from David Stoughton just yet, just because I have not been keeping up with the show. But I'm going to keep an open mind. I'm not just going to knock it and say, Andrew Brenner's gone, that's the end of Thomas. I can't really say. There's a lot more into what Thomas and Friends is, so I need more exposure to David Stoughton. It's like it's like when they brought Chris Renshaw for the music. We were all a little bit nervous. I mean, he had some good hits with The Great Race, but then he really blew it out of the park with Donald and Douglas's theme. So hopefully he is going to continue that habit of having individual character themes, because I know with season 21 we had Donald and Douglas and Emily with Emily in the middle, and you could hear Donald and Douglas's theme in a different variation. So I'm really hoping he keeps that flow. Emmanuel, have I made any HO scale customs yet? If you follow me on Twitter, you'll have your answer. Tom Man, you think Hasbro would be better than Mattel? I don't really know. Hasbro has worked with the Transformers series for a while. Then you had the Bayformers films. He needed to lay off the explosions and actually learn the lore. But I don't know. I'd be interested to see what they could do. I'd be interested. So Darkwing Duck appeared in the new DuckTales reboot. I'm actually going to have to catch up on DuckTales. I'm going to say this is sacrilegious for me to say. The only reason I got interested in it is because I heard David Tennant was Scrooge McDuck. And David Tennant was the 10th Doctor in Doctor Who. That's how I got to Doctor. And then when his reign as Doctor finished, I fell off Doctor Who. Have I seen any Trackmaster push-alongs? I actually have not been out of my house since March 17th, so St. Paddy's Day. I haven't been out shopping. I've been stuck in my house. So no, I have not seen anything. I've been stuck with the same old, same old. Hasbro made MLP enjoyable. Fine, I'll give you that. The Flim Flam Brothers and their song Kill me, that's so catchy. How you doing, Muffin Lover? Good to have you here. I need to be a kid show based on Thomas with American locomotives. Well, if you think about it, if you need a kids show, look at Tugs. That is a British show based on North American steam tugs. So there's a good show for you to watch. Only 13 episodes. And still one of the best kids shows ever. Thomas NWR Thomas 25. What do I think about Mattel writing out Edward and Henry from the series and the Steam Team returning? I don't mind that they moved Edward to the Wellsworth Brendam line. That's his branch line. He has to be there. I do not appreciate them trying to write them out of the show. They are core characters to the series for Thomas and Friends, and it was a very foolish mistake. For them being in the background, I mean, that's just kind of normal. Even in the classic model series, seasons 1 to 4, they were just in the background pulling trains, and that I didn't mind. But for them to try and bring back the Steam Team, not a good idea. Hit Entertainment, when they had it on their own, kind of had it fail miserably. So for them to do it now, especially trying to write out Edward and Henry, core characters to the entire Railway series, is not very smart. Emmanuel, would I prefer if, in the rebuilding of Tidmouth's sheds after James's accident, Mr. Topham Hatt had made the sheds larger instead of removing Edward and Henry? I feel he should have shipped Nia back to Africa, and he should have only had Rebecca on loan and had her stationed in the Knapford sheds, not at Tidmouth. Tidmouth is one major terminus, and that's usually where most of the engines end up. I mean, Gordon does the express run from, I believe it's going to be Knapford all the way up to Vickerstown and then back. So that's definitely something that's normal. Like, having Gordon stationed there is good. Having Henry stationed at Vickerstown now makes more sense because he's a mixed traffic engine. And if you follow Sir Topham Hatt NWR on Twitter, you'll read some of the fitters' notes they have, and that Henry is an essential part of the railway. He pulls passengers and freight, and he's versatile. He can be put between both of them, so they need him in traffic all the time. So if he works in one spot, he can move and work in another and just kind of move from one place to the next. American TT fan, you're saying Jim Cummings voiced Darkwing Duck. I'm going to have some homework in catching up and watching DuckTales now after this stream, aren't I? Muffin Lover, do I feel like Mattel could make an actual Thomas and Friends game? Have you seen what they've done with the products? If your answer is yes, my answer for them making a game will be no. Sorry. I hate to burst the bubble, but I don't think they could pull it off. So Tom Man, you're saying Hasbro has also saved Power Rangers. I don't really know if they have or haven't, but definitely something good. If they've managed to save it, that's a good thing, because I know I grew up with Power Rangers and I know people who are interested in it. I would have to say, talk to the Unlucky Tugs friend. I don't remember his name. I think it's like Zio something. But those guys I know are major Power Rangers fans. They could probably give you a stronger answer than I could. Scarloe Reneus, you're jumping in on my stream after I jumped in on yours. Am I the man behind the slaughter? Which slaughter are you talking about? I've done a lot of slaughtering in my life. Butcher models, create things. So, which one are you talking about? Emmanuel, have I watched any Thomas modelers like Caleb and Brandon? Yes, I have. I did watch some of their most recent videos, and I have to admit I'm really impressed. For me personally, I would have liked to hear Knapford Harbor do the scores to those, but I think Knapford Harbor and TARDIS Rescue have just such a great chemistry together. When is it? TARDIS Rescue's next video coming out? With the news of the miniature engines coming back in season 24, if they bounce, so help me God. Just so help me God. Do I still post on Blue Plastic Tracks? Not really, because I don't really do anything with my PlayRail stuff. If anything, I might post an announcement that I am officially done with Blue Plastic Tracks and PlayRail and Trackmaster, and that I'm condensing my collection to things I just want to keep, and anything else that I'm not going to keep, I will put up for sale. What do I think of the PlayRail redesigns of Edward and Henry? Edward is terrible. Henry, I kind of wish they gave him Gordon rods as well. I feel like that might have lifted up his look a bit. If you really want a good review on Henry, check out Henry NWR3's YouTube video. He got the new version of Henry, and he did a good review on him. I just keep kicking my table, you guys. I'm so sorry. What do I think of Diesel D199? I loved his content. It's kind of sad that I don't know if he's still producing content anymore, but I know he's gone to Blender, which makes it easier for him to have more flexibility, more creativity than he can with the models. So I definitely love his work. I'm definitely a big supporter. It's called Count How Many Characters We've Half-Hearted as we introduce them. I mean, they've done that since Journey Beyond Sordor with everyone barring Merlin in that cast. I would love to see Merlin back in the show, though. The fact that Hugh Bonneville came back readily to voice Merlin for just one episode made me so happy. What do I think about Big Mickey having a face now? I think someone on Twitter showed what his prototype Tugs series face would have been. I kind of prefer this one, but at the same time, I wish they would have. I think it was Rob Rackstraw who voiced him. I wish he would have tried to emulate the late Timothy Bateson for Big Mickey, but at the same time, you know, having Big Mickey in his own way for Thomas and Friends is a good idea. Misael, I have not heard from you in a while. It's good to hear and see from you again. Have I heard about the Bachmann, N-Scale, Thomas, and Percy, as well as James, Annie, Clarabelle, and the trucks? Yes. Don't know how I feel about those. I do know that I do plan to buy the Skarloey Railway engines as time comes on, once I have steady employment, once I have steady income, and obviously when I have a big layout for my Thomas and Friends HO scale stuff. Yeah, Tom, man, I'm going to agree. Edward's design sucks. I'm glad I have the old C-Cell version, but even then, you know, I don't know what PlayRail was thinking, to be honest with you. Sorry, I keep getting texts. Am I going to go to the train show this year if it comes around? Always. That's like the 3 days of my life where I get to enjoy what I love and to get away from it. So Diesel D199 is probably the largest Thomas YouTube user. I don't know. Sidekick Jason and Enterprising Engines 93 are really catching up on him. Emmanuel, am I considering using practical water in my sets? No. I don't have the space for real water, and at the same time, if it happens to get on one of my HO scale engines and the parts are no longer available for it, I'm just down with a dead engine, and I don't want to do that. I mean, this little green runt over here is already a waste of my money, but, you know, what can I do? What do I think of the Trackmaster line being renamed to Motorized? Another crap choice. Mattel is just not using their head very well. And I don't blame them, but at the same time, a lot of the blame lies with them. They don't know what they're doing. Thoughts on Grumpy Diesel? They just couldn't release the face mask. They had to release a new diesel locomotive, with it being one they've already previously released, having a grumpy face. That's like them reintroducing Scruffy as a rebuilt Scruffy. There's no real difference in that. A T54482. I don't know what that locomotive looks like. But if you can send me a link or a picture of it, American, I'd definitely like to see that. Emmanuel, would I prefer if Playrail decided to start using the long side rods like on Gordon and Henry? Let me see. Wrong drawer. So your question is about these side rods here on Henry. If I wanted them to use that, or these little generic ones, I would have to say for like the redesign on Gordon, I would have liked them to use these side rods on the tender engines, you know, like the redesigned Henry, Connor, and Caitlin, and any other big tender engines like Lorenzo that they may be releasing in the future, and then the standard ones that were on the Shooting Star Gordon for tank engines. But it's really just down to the company's preference. I like all of them, to be honest with you. I don't think I've had a problem with any of the side rods as of yet. Knock on wood. But it just depends. Like if they didn't redesign Henry and Edward, I would like for them to keep using those regular long side rods. But with this new redesign, I think they're just trying to condense everything to one particular type. So Bachmann, Busy Bee, James. That's like the one piece of merch of James that people will buy regardless. I wish they would do another one of James from him with The Adventure Begins. But then again, people will customize James models. And I know I will when I get the LBSC Thomas. That one, for sure, I will buy in a heartbeat. Frisco 1522 is one of those engines. I don't think I've seen that locomotive. If I have, I can't bring it to my mind at the moment. Tom Mann, Mattel should just stop and just sell the show to some other company. Mattel, I always hear Disney is looking to buy things. You may also want to sell the license for the products as well. GLC Glock. Yo. Thomas, 25. What if the Tomy range had never discontinued back in 2006 and held the license up for this day? I don't know how I feel about that because Hit Toys did a phenomenal job. I know I did a live stream about this, but one thing I will always say is Hit Toys knew how to circulate the engines. I mean, the Thomas and Friends aisle, like you go to stores and you see like the Lego aisle and that is just full on both ends. That was Thomas and Friends with Hit Toys Trackmaster. You had sets, you had the trucks and track packs, you had track packs, you had 3-piece Trackmaster Greatest Moment sets, you had the engines or engines in a car. It was just stock full and you could find whatever character you were looking for. So I would prefer like a mixture of Tomy USA and Hit Toys Trackmaster. Emmanuel, do I know any nostalgic Thomas the Tank Engine YouTube users like Topcast Fat? I'm familiar with them. If I know them personally as a friend, I don't, but I wish I did. Texas Trainmaster, you wish Lionel would make more Thomas characters? They probably don't care. They're going to focus on their actual models because people are going to buy those over Thomas and Friends. Tom Man, how many express coaches do I have? For the red and cream, I've got 5. And then the green and cream, I've got 8 to 10. I don't know. So the express coaches, the red and cream, I know for sure I've got 5. The green and cream, it's 8 or 10. No less than 8, no more than 10. Have I ever made a bridge scene in my sets? I don't think I have. Not in my more recent ones. I know when I had the Trackmaster bridge, you can see that like in the Tucker Tomy Playrail James teaser where he's going over it, that's probably the only time I've had a bridge in my sets. I don't have the proper parts to build the bridges. I could do one out of popsicle sticks, but I'm kind of using popsicle sticks to survive. So, Muffin Lover, who won the contest I made? What contest? Because I don't know. I've had so many different contests. If you're talking about the live stream giveaways from last year, True Blue won the Playrail Hurricane model that I had a spare of, and Jonathan Asmile won my custom Playrail The Adventure Begins James. As far as the Take and Play Rex and Mike, the third place runner-up never gotten to contact with me about claiming them, so those two are unclaimed and will probably just be sold off. Do you think Hit Toys should have made their own Daisy model? Yes. They could have capitalized using Boco's chassis. A lot of people who make a custom of Daisy in Playrail or Trackmaster do use Boco's chassis or Diesel 10's chassis to make Daisy. So if Hit Toys had made Daisy, I would probably have her in my collection. Tom Man, any more review on products for this channel? Heaps. I have gotten into 00 scale, as you can kind of see here, and with the little green gremlin, I am getting more Bachmann stuff. There will be more reviews. It is me just trying to get to any HO scale clubs in the area where I live, most likely after this pandemic's lockdown is done and complete, just so that way I can show them on a bigger layout and running much more freely rather than just static shots on one spot, or, you know, like what I do with the Rail Fanning on Sodor series, where it's a little set I built up. My camera is picky. It likes to go on strike. If you actually watch a video I released early this morning, the blooper reel for Union Pacific 3985, you will see how much that camera hates me. Am I considering any more lengthy Thomas specials in the future? I had considered doing the sequel to Merry Christmas, Stephen, the Q1. Okay, I'll admit it. I did come up with the title for it, and I had been working on it. It's called Half a World Away. It does not feature any engines traveling to another country. But that one, I just guess I gave up on. No one's really been showing interest in my own little spin-off series, so I figured I'll stick with more of what I enjoy producing. Misael, do I think it would be easier if Mattel gave the rights to make the motorized Thomas range and start distributing the Playrail estates? It would, but at the same time, Mattel has to deal with licensing rights. So there's the Playrail company, and then Mattel is the one that gets to take charge of the prices. So if, say, for example, they did do it and they said, hey, we want $20 for a 3-pack, most people would not be willing to pay. I know I would be willing to pay from Japan because they do reduce the sales tax. They do deduct the sales tax for foreigners. So that's about 8%. And that'll drop the price a good chunk. So I don't know if the show gets bought out by someone else and then they decide they want the Playrail company's products to be circulated here in the States, maybe that'll happen. But Mattel's probably never going to let go of Thomas and Friends. Emmanuel, would the Trackmaster models look any better with the white foot plates? Significantly better. I have customized Samson and the Adventure Begins Thomas with the white running board, and they look phenomenal. So the white running board definitely does lift up the character a whole lot. Do I own any Bandai Thomas toys? No. I know one that I do really want very badly is going to be Butch with his trailer. That for me, when I saw it, was I wanted it. But every time I look for him on eBay, it's such an exuberant price, and what I would pay for just that, I could get more stuff for OO scale or N scale. What is my favorite Playrail? Oliver, hands down. He's just one of those really, really rare engines, but he's also my favorite character. The customization I've done on mine really brought him to life. Do you think Playrail should have used their prototype Thomas face? Maybe. It just depends on the context. I know the prototype Donald face was not the best, but I kind of like the faces they've gone with now. At this point, do I think Mattel should do the Railway series stories? If they hadn't made drastic changes after season 20, yes, because they adapted Tit for Tat, Useful Railway, and Mike's Whistle, and those were such a big hit. I remember in the podcast with Henry and WR3 around the water tower talking about the Smallies stories, and my older brother, who doesn't even watch Thomas anymore, popped in on Mike's Whistle. And he said Mike was the grumpiest little stinker he had ever seen, though. And that he sat down and watched the episode with me, and he said it felt like Thomas again. So if they hadn't made such drastic, unnecessary changes after season 20, it probably would have worked out for the best. Bandai Diesel 10 is one of the most rare Bandais to find, especially with him having Pinchy in that rotating arm. So yeah, if you get a Bandai Diesel 10, hold on to him. He's gold. Emmanuel, are some Thomas and Friends prototypes better than the toys themselves? Yes, and I'm actually going to pull up a picture from my phone here for you. That'll be a Trackmaster prototype of Bash and Dash. Let me find it for you first. Because Playrail's Bash and Dash was pretty good, but this was the prototype for the Trackmaster one, which looked remarkably realistic. And I would have preferred to spend my money hunting those variations down rather than buying what I had before I sold them off. Thomas 25, Mattel should really just sell the franchise. Yeah, but they won't want to. They control all of the product merch, barring the HO scale stuff, because believe me, if Mattel tried to produce them, they'd probably fail in a heartbeat. So they should, but they won't. For example, that blue plastic truck's primer painted Thomas. I don't think I've seen that one, Emmanuel, so I may have to look at that. Tom Man 256. Do I have or want the CGI Playrail Thomas and Percy? I do not have them, nor do I want them. Not to say that they are bad models, I just have no desire to have them in my collection. It's kind of like me having all these models of James. I've got his C-Cell variation, I've got his 2013 redesign, then I've got the Adventure Begins Playrail James. I've got so many of him, and it's also like Gordon. I've got the C-Cell, I've got his AA variation, then I've got him as Shooting Star. It's just too many of one character for me. Misael, does anyone remember the early prototype for fifth place Gordon? No, I do. I never saw him, and that was really disappointing. I really feel like Hit Toys would have done a great job with that. Texas Trainmaster 2248. What's my opinion on Thomas the Magic Railroad? Ambitious. Soccer parents needed to grow up, but it was a good movie. I mean, obviously, if you grew up with Shining Time Station, that's what they were trying to cater to. And I think that's why it just didn't really work out very well in other countries like Britain. Emmanuel, do I prefer the batteries and tenders, which are wired to the engines? Only if the tender's design is able to incorporate it. For Henry, Gordon, James, and Edward, their C-Cell variations were really good. I gave the tender engines a big, good tender. Engines nowadays, they could probably use it. I would say Lorenzo would be one of them. He could have had I don't know, maybe a AA style tender, but have the battery connect to the motor in the engine, so that way they could have made him a little bit bigger, a little bit longer. So it's hit and miss for some characters. You really just kind of have to sit back and think, because with Connor and Caitlin, they look good with the new motor design, but Lorenzo, the new Henry, the new Edward, they don't really. Have I heard about the unreleased hit Toys Percy the Ice Cream Factory set? Yes, I have. I was really interested. I wanted to see what that would have been like as a train set. It's a pity it never got released, but still, it would have been a good set. Have I seen Percy Engine 619? I am subscribed to him. I actually do like his remakes. It does pain me that he does go to great lengths for accuracy. Seeing him do the Hero of the Rails chase where he actually cut up a play rail patchwork hero was a real stab in my heart. What can I say about Playrail Lorenzo and Gina? Gina is the biggest letdown with her rolling stock because it's just 2 colored trucks and then like sticker plastic card cutouts of, I think it's Jack and Alfie, which is really disappointing. I would have rather just trucks of rubble. Lorenzo, I did retweet someone who modified their Playrail one to make him look a bit better, as well as Beppe. Sidekick Jason earlier this morning, where I live, was saying that the Playrail capsule Beppe has a 3D face, but then the Playrail Tomy version has a sticker face. I don't like that. Do you think a movie based around the modernization would be a good send-off? Maybe. But at the same time, Muffin Lover, a lot of fans have done that where they take their own spin on the series and they bring it up to modern day. So, you know, where dieselization has already occurred, electrification has already occurred, and engines that are in preservation go to visit Sodor, or some engines from Sodor go to visit heritage railways in Britain. That, I think, would be a good way to continue the series, but Mattel probably will never do that. Have I heard of the Bachmann Daisy? Yes. I wish I could see a prototype of her to determine whether or not I will buy her. I probably will not. I don't know. I have to wait and see. It's kind of like Henry. I didn't expect to be buying Henry, but, you know, it happened. It's also like Playrail Duck. I wasn't intending to get him, but then someone had him for a really good price, and I couldn't say no. Did I store up on the old Playrail Gordon models? No, I just have the one. I do keep them all safely protected away from sunlight, so that way their faces do not yellow. Excuse me. Even if I did, I probably would not be selling them for cheap. I probably would not have opened any of them, and I could rightfully command top dollar for them if I had wanted to. Misael, thoughts on Capsule Playrail? The things that you can do with it are phenomenal. It is insane what you can do with the Playrail capsule line. I've even seen users like Thomas Fan 247 or Christian Brown, where he took Rex and Mike and put them on chassis to make them emulate the Ravendellen-esque railway. I wonder if he's done that with Bert yet. But if you also look at Sidekick Jason, he's trying to find a way to incorporate the Smallies into his series. Do I plan on making any more Playrail videos, and do I have any unopened ones? I have no unopened Playrail items. Everything is practically open at this point. Do I plan on making more of the Playrail videos? I really don't know. I've been struggling before I even got put in the shelter in place. I've been struggling to create content because I didn't know what my fans wanted. I'm probably going to end up putting up another poll on Twitter after this live stream just to see what people want to have from me in regards to Playrail content, because I do know I want to film a story that I wrote, and that will feature the narrow gauge engines, not standard gauge, just focus entirely on narrow gauge. So I'm excited for that, but I want to get all of that set up, filmed, edited, and produced before I reach out to someone that I want to do classic series music for the show, for that episode. As far as anything else, I don't know if I'll produce anything anymore for Playrail or Trackmaster. I'm moving more towards actual model railroading with HOOO scale and N scale, but only time will tell. Do I think Bachmann will make Boko? No, they won't make such an obscure character. As far as any other characters they have not already done, they're probably going to focus on the cast in the show. And Bachmann, if you're still listening to me, Ryan is a good character to make. I will buy him from you. Also, Judy and Jerome in the works, coach. Make that as a train set. I will buy it. I will review it. Muffin Lover, yes, but story based around the track record of the island, knowing just how much control Topham has. I mean, at this point, it's like he has no control. I know there was a Twitter argument about Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure. So Topham Hatt is so harsh and so strict. Read the Railway series. Watch what Thomas actually began as, and you will see he's like a businessman. He has to run a railroad. You can't just have engines gallivanting off and doing whatever the devil they like. They have to do the job. So I feel like it would be a good idea, but they've just made him such a running gag that it's not going to work out too well. Do I have any rare Playrail engines? Yes, I've got Murdoch, I've got Arthur, I've got Molly, I do have Neville, I've got Oliver, which is obviously a big rare engine. There are a lot of characters that are now becoming rare, like the C-Cell variations on Edward, Gordon, Henry, and James are now considered rare. Dash is now considered rare. Some discontinued characters are becoming rare. I do have the motorized version of the Playrail Rocky. That is considered significantly rare just to be motorized. I also do have the Playrail Stanley. I do think I might end up selling him. I just don't know yet. Do I want them to introduce Boko? No. If they're going to introduce Boko, another company has to have the full reins of Thomas, and that includes the product line, because they probably have a stronger understanding of the history and the world that the Reverend and the fans have built with Thomas and Friends. What do I think of Hornby letting go of Thomas and Friends? I think it was kind of a good idea. Thomas and Friends for HOO scale is such a good idea to get kids into model railroading. But at the same time, just look at how the prices jumped. I bought my Bachmann James from Hobbytown, USA for $45. That's what James, when he was first introduced for, went at his retail cost. It was $45. Excuse me. And I just washed this sweater too, darn it. Excuse me. So Hornby probably could not sell the characters because if they're being told, hey, don't manufacture any of these older ones unless they look like the show. They've kind of lost to Bachmann. I mean, Percy is the perfect example. He looks like Percy from the show. So, do I think Mattel is trying to anger the older fans on purpose? Maybe, but I mean, you got Sam Wilkinson for that. He's already angered a lot of people, myself included. So. I wouldn't say they're trying to anger. They probably got tired of catering to us. I'm one of the fans where I enjoyed season 20 significantly. The only complaints I had were about characters I didn't care for, Philip, or some of the stories. 3 Engines Gruff. But I'm not going to be the one demanding, like, you need to write everything the way the Reverend had it. I'm just going to ask, hey, if you're going to bring characters back, make sure the renders are accurate. Oliver is not accurate. Toad is not accurate. Donald and Douglas are not accurate. So that's typically my only gripe is renders. What Playrail engines do I dream of being released? Ooh. I don't really think there are any more released. The show's just kind of reached its plummeting point. The fact that it's still plummeting after that is amazing. But then that just shows how bad Mattel is at actually running their product. Think Forever and Ever could have been better. I'd not watched that episode. I haven't really kept up with the show after Big World, Big Adventures. I saw that, and I knew it was just going to flop. So I haven't really done my best to keep up with the show intentionally, just because I don't care to watch it anymore. It is not what I consider to be Thomas, and you know, it lacks heavily. So it's definitely something that needs to be addressed, something that Mattel has to look and say, these have all flopped. But only time will tell. Derek Marquette, good to have you here. Will I be getting the Bachmann N-scale models? It depends on the scaling. Because if I am going to go with those models, I need to figure out what I'm going to do with them. The only reason why I've gotten into the 00 scale with Thomas & Friends is because I can install actual screw link and chain link couplings to the engines and the coaches for realism. As far as N scale goes, I don't know if there are coupling kits available to do that, but then at the same time, it makes it significantly more difficult to couple those up with it being significantly smaller. Favorite Railway Series book? I can't choose. I had the big collection of the Railway Series stories, and I fell in love with it. I would never be able to choose a personal favorite book. Emmanuel, which Thomas merch user do you think has inspired you the most? I'd have to say Enterprising Engines 93. The way that he takes the world of Thomas & Friends and makes it his own kind of spins and twists is probably something I look up to. It's the way he can incorporate modern themes into a kid's show, and he's actually better than what's produced by the company that runs the show. Do I think the show should end before the franchise loses its popularity? If I knew that Big World, Big Adventures was going to be as big of a flop as I personally thought it was, they should have ended it immediately after. It's just, they've run the show in a direction, kind of like what Hit Entertainment did, but with Hit Entertainment, they kept it as Thomas, more as like an educational thing. But with this one, it's just literal pandering. It's political correctness. Critics call The Great Race a film that Mattel caved in to political correctness, which is true. They listened to the UN, and instead of someone at Mattel telling the UN, you need to run other more significantly important things than us telling us how to run a kid's show. So it is something that they probably should be considering doing. The episode is based around Gordon being sad because Henry and Edward left. It's incredibly cringy. So I've heard a lot of this show has been cringy after Big World, Big Adventures. And again, it's another reason why I haven't tuned in. What is the most perfect custom you have seen for Thomas fans? Sordor Railway Modeling's in progress version of Richard, for me, has to be the most perfect one so far. The work that Steven does is just phenomenal. At the same time, I do have to mention these guys. Thomas Tank Merch owning props from the actual show. They've got Duke, they've got Sir Handel, they've got Rusty. When are they getting everyone else from the Narrow Gagers? Is my question. But yeah, I would have to say Steven's model of Richard for me has to be one of the most perfect customs. I know he's still working on wrapping up Richard, or probably waiting for Carson's permission to post pictures of it. But that one for me has got to be my most favorite custom that I've seen so far. Not that everyone's customs are garbage or anything, but for me, it's just the level of detail that he goes into with making this is good. What Bachmann models do I have in sale? Well, you can see my little green gremlin right here. I've got a runty little Percy. I showed off Henry earlier, but I've got him safely tucked away. I have Oliver, Scruffy, Toad, Pink Rosie, Mavis, the Great Western Quack, and Donald. That wraps up the ones I've got currently. I am looking to pick up Edward. I've got Douglas, not Donald. I'm looking to pick up Donald. I'm looking to pick up Edward. I'm also planning to get the red version of Rosie from Bachmann, as well as the LVSC number 70 Thomas. That Thomas has to be my favorite livery. As far as any other engines after that, I don't know. If they do release Ryan, I am going to buy him. Ryan's become one of my absolute favorite characters. I doubt Bachmann will release Merlin. If they do release Merlin, I will buy him. Hugh Bonneville is one of my favorite actors, so I can't really say no. Have I read about Sodor Fallout? Muffin Lover, I don't know about Sodor Fallout, and I personally don't think I will be reading up into it, just because it's probably not something that'll catch my attention or hold it as much as I want it to. But if it is something that you're enjoying, that's pretty good. I'm glad that you are. Everyone has to have something they enjoy nowadays, with all the time in the world on their hands. I'm just going through the chat real fast, making sure I'm not missing out on anything else here. But yeah, it's been a little bit of a roller coaster, this chat. We've been talking left, right, up, down about everything. Thomas 25, why do you think Playrail did not include a motor for Merlin? I think I mentioned this in the set review, but it would have added at least another $25 to the set just to motorize Merlin. It's just the cost, to be honest with you. If they release Merlin by himself, hey, good on them that they motorized him. But at the same time, he's just such a niche character now. He's only been in a special and in one episode. And I got him because I liked Hugh Bonneville. I loved the design for Merlin when they showed him off. And I said, I have to have him. Derek, what's my rarest piece of Thomas merch? I'd have to say it'd be some of my Playrail engines. It's obviously going to be Oliver, Trackmaster, Donald and Douglas, Hank. A lot of the Hit Toys Trackmaster engines that I do have are going to be rare. The C-Cell variations on Gordon, Henry, Edward, and James are going to be rare. And then Playrail Merlin is going to be considered rare just because he's only available in the set. Most people, when they sell him by himself, they're commanding money for him. It's like, hey, I've got a loose Playrail Merlin with his tender brand new from the box. I want $80 for him. And that doesn't even, present the cost of shipping. If I'm not a fan of Shed 17, I might not like this one. I don't think I even saw Shed 17. I only heard about it. I know that the creator got a lot of dissent for it. So, Emmanuel, what do I think of 98-462 Psychopathic Character? I don't know who you're talking about, to be brutally honest with you. Thomas 25, you should show an updated collection of your Playrail. Maybe you should. I'm interested. Who in the Thomas franchise has made the best set? Well, Wooden Railway has the unfair advantage. They had an unfair advantage before Mattel took over. They had such a variety and cast of characters. They could make several destinations, and those all incorporated into the track system. And sure, they could be gimmicky, but all the engines can interact with it. Excuse me. So Wooden Railway, by far from Learning Curve and from Tomy, made the best sets. As far as the Playrail line is concerned, the only sets I've gotten that are Thomas and Friends are Thomas and Hero at the station, as well as Let's Reminiscence, Thomas and Merlin at the Coal Hopper. And those two for me have to be my absolute favorite genuine train sets. Almost everything else that I have bought has either just been engines and coaches or rolling stock, and then of course track. For HO scale, obviously, I'm more focused on real life engines. As you can tell here, I've got the Q1, City of Truro, Evening Star, Scotty, a Peckett, the Princess Elizabeth, and that doesn't even count the N2 that I've got coming in, or the auto tanks that I got from Hatton's. Do I play any instruments? No, but over 10 years ago, I used to play the trumpet for school. It was fun. I miss that. Have I heard of the Thomas creepypasta? Yes. Am I interested in it? Not really. I've just really fallen from Thomas with the way the show has gone. I mean, it's weird that with this lockup, I'm sure that's how these came around, but, there's not much you can do. Ghost engines, they've been kind of around for a long time. I even spun a yarn of a ghost engine story for my cousins when they used to live here. We were young, really, really young. I don't even think I was 12 years old at the time. But I live about a mile and a half from an active railroad line. And I was telling one of my cousins when they were sleeping over a ghost story about a train that had wrecked. So, ghost engines aren't that bad. Timothy, the ghost engine is a hit and miss thing. There's some people who pull it off very well, like Diesel D199, and then others that bring a new element to the table. So it's all just a matter of personal preference, I would say. My opinion on people still seeing Thomas's dark, messed up show. Have they read the books? Because if they haven't, they need to read the books and actually look at the books. I know I think it was Set Me the Bluebell Engine where Percy is talking to, was it Donald or Douglas? One of the two. And they show a worker cutting up a steam engine. They want dark, there's dark. And I'm just going to take this sidetrack really quick. Parents need to stop bubble wrapping their kids. Scrapping happens. They need to accept that. And I think that's one thing that the show needs to accept is like Journey Beyond Soldier had the potential for an amazing crash with Henry. But when it came to slamming into the brake van didn't even explode, it just bounced. And then Henry had some minor damage. No, you need to show like significant damage. That brake van would have exploded into pieces. Frame bent. The trucks probably would have been damaged as well. Henry could have had some really bad damage. I would have loved to see a really severely damaged cylinder from him. Alfred. Oh. I really don't care about it. I mean, if he got his own following, hey, kudos to him, but I don't really care for like these horror things. Thoughts on Mattel advertising the 75th anniversary of the franchise? You mean like how they advertised everything else and it flopped? Mattel needs to know what they're doing. And right now they don't, which is the sad thing. They need to get people who know what Thomas is about. Do I think Thomas still gets too much screen time? Yes. They're probably trying to milk out Thomas being this, Thomas being that. It's like Thomas has to be there, or Thomas has to always be right even when he causes the problem. That's not how it works. Go back to the roots. You'll see when Thomas tries to be the hero for the problem he caused, he gets in trouble for it. That's what I want to see. The time Gordon almost exploded in the Great Race was probably the most graphic they got. Yeah. The fact that they forgot something like his safety valve was pathetic. And the fact that they just said, oh, look, parts of his boiler just broke free. That's a poor welding job, to be honest with you. I really don't know what to say about it. Like, it can always be worse. Mattel is just bubble wrapping what accidents can really be. Having not seen Shed 17, I'd only heard it was really, really graphic, and I didn't really care to be invested into it. And I think also at the time I was going through a lot of personal things, so there was nothing for me to really want to do, watch with Shed 17. I just heard about it and I said the concept itself was stupid. I'm still going to rule that it is stupid, but at the same time, you have to give the guy props. Favorite episodes from season 3. Anything and everything with Oliver. So Escape, Oliver Owns Up, Bulgy. Henry's Forest, as controversial as it is one of my favorites from that series, season, hands down. Do you think it was necessary to streamline Gordon? No, but I think the Unlucky Tug put it best. The toys came out before the film, so they probably had to streamline Gordon for the film. I just really don't know what to make of it, you guys. They always want to be selling the products, but they aren't listening to the consumer. Daisy is popular. You release her in the toy range, kids are going to want her. You keep bringing in characters and not working with the world of characters you've already got, it's not going to work out well. So it just all depends if Mattel is willing to realize, okay, we have these characters that can work. Look at character pairings. Especially when you do something like that, you get really, really interesting episodes. People want to see Duck and Diesel again. I don't. They had their spat in season 2. That's all they needed. I would like to see, Ryan and Duck, or Ryan with another engine that he's never worked with before. Like, why not have Ryan work on Edward's branch line? Have him trying to impress Edward, and then Edward just telling him, don't try to impress him, just do your job, and that's all I ask. How do I feel when I see a real cheap play rail on Amazon? A rare one? That's when I get suspicious, because that for me can scream fraud right off the bat, or a scam, and I don't really trust Amazon. So yeah, I mean, they could be lying. It's like pictures. Wow, the water's still cold. I like that. Take and Play 2013 was the best until the 2014 design. Now, if you're talking about before they got those huge magnets, yes, it was. I think the only Take and Play engine I got from that timeline was Hank. And then the 2014 redesign, I know I've got Gator, some freight cars, Oliver and Toad. Oliver and Toad were obvious. I had to have them. But yeah, I would definitely say be wary on the rare, real cheap play rails, because they can have the pictures of the C cell variations and then they send you the AA and say, oh, but this is the rare one. And they make off with your money. So I'm not too keen on using Amazon for it, and that's why I go to other websites, or I reach out to someone in Japan who can get me these products directly. But it's all just down to your personal preference, really. What do I think personally about voice acting? Is it a step up over narration? What I will call the apex season. One of the greatest seasons we got from Modern Thomas. The narration with Mark Morgan was phenomenal. And then the characters having individual voices just kind of helps to identify them with the kids. So I think it's a good idea. Voice acting can help out a lot. I mean, Robert Rackstraw. Why did we not have him as James with the start of the CGI series? He's perfect for James. Have I seen the recent Thomas and Friends Hot Wheels? Yeah, Twitter blew up about it for a little while. I looked at it and I didn't really pay much attention to it because it's Hot Wheels. Mattel is obviously going to incorporate one of their brands into another major key brand, so that's something that should have been expected. Henry Blue. That name is so familiar. I really wish my brain would not blank out on this, but I think I know who you're talking about. I think I did enjoy his content quite a lot. Kind of sad to see that he's gone. Do I still have Thomas in the Timber Yard set? I do, but I am planning to sell a good chunk of it, just because I don't even use it anymore. I had it for a while, and then it just kind of gathered dust, and I figured someone else may be happier having it in their collection than me. So it will be up for sale in due time. Where do I order my play rails? Typically eBay. I go to a website now called Hobby Search. So they specialize in a lot of Japanese goods ranging from model trains in N, HO, and Z scale, including the play rails, to anime figurines and whatnot. So that's typically where I now order my play rails. I used to have a contact who could get them for me directly. But now, since I don't collect play rail, if I do have to buy it, I'd probably go from Hobby Search. Are you glad the community isn't as big just to be laughed at like the Thomas community, like the Sonic community? There's something different about us compared to the Sonic community. Yes, we're both toxic, but the Sonic community, sticks together. People have differing opinions. They love making Big the Cat a running gag, and they tend to have a really good time. Like, I am part of the Sonic community. I'm not extremely active because I'm not a super diehard fan. But at the same time, I can appreciate how they have an understanding for the lore and the history for that franchise. Do I like how the LBSC Bachmann Thomas looks? Emmanuel, I'm going to let you in on a nice little secret. When Bachmann dropped that photo, my jaw hit the floor, and I knew I had to have it. So whenever it releases, I will for sure be ordering him. So he will join my fleet. Hello, what's this? Oh, well, that's good. Yay. My N2 has arrived. I will go work with him later. Probably after I get some lunch. If y'all have been hearing my stomach growl, I am so sorry. But yes, I do love how the LBSC Thomas looks. It's probably the second time in my life that I've been looking forward to a Bachmann model. When I heard about Oliver and Toad, I pre-ordered Toad. I pre-ordered Oliver. This Thomas, I'll have to wait and see on the pre-order. I don't know if anyone's going to actually be able to open up pre-orders for him. I hope they can. But if not, I'll just wait and browse around online and buy him for the cheapest cost. And then obviously I'm going to have to do a review. I cannot have the LBSC Thomas and not do a review for him. And I may have to bite the bullet as well and buy the red wagons. I might just buy 4, 6, probably 6 of the red wagons for him to have. Just that way it's good on it. Thoughts on season 2? Is it overhyped in my opinion? No. I grew up with that, so I'm definitely going to say yes, season 2 is one of the greatest seasons I've ever had. People who overhype it are probably new fans, so I can't really say whether or not they can overhype it. People are allowed to have their opinions on some seasons, but to an extent. Like, I'm not going to say, season 4 is the best season, hands down. No contest. It is a phenomenal season, but it has its own cons as well as its own pros as to what makes it a good season. Do I have any spare items? I have plenty of spare Trackmaster Hurricanes. So if you're looking for a Hurricane, hit me up on Twitter. Are you glad Playrail did the LBSC and Black James? Yes, especially with the Thomas. I did a review on that. I painted his underframe black. I gave his wheels the white lining, and it absolutely lifted the look of the model. I keep them away from the sun because I just love the way they look. Again, my only gripe with the Thomas is that they didn't use a CGI face, but at the same time, if anyone is looking to do a recreation of The Adventure Begins, they do have a Thomas to do it now for the Takartomi line. Do you like how the Trackmaster 29 Thomas shell looks like on the Playrail body? Manuel, do you like how the Trackmaster 29 Thomas shell looks? I need you to expand on that, Emmanuel, because I'm kind of a little bit lost on your question. But if you can expand on it, go ahead and talk to me about it. Muffin Liver, when Mattel adapted the Small Railway book, did it bring you hope? It surprised me. To be brutally honest, I was straight surprised. And I was delighted. I didn't have much hope for the show, but it was a really big surprise. I enjoyed it very much. All right, Tom, man, just hit me up on Twitter at HankThePRRK4 for a Hurricane. I do have, I think, 1 or 2 spare models of the Trackmaster one. If you're also looking for his cars, let me know, and we can hash out the details there. Hey, it's Junction Malfunction. You finally made it to one. And before I move on to Emmanuel's other question, I did have a live stream last year on my birthday, which is when my very first video was uploaded. So, Emmanuel, am I going to add the black in between your Bachmann Thomas splashers? If you mean like the underframe, yes, I will do that. You can see here with Henry's Tender, it was gray. I made it black. We'll go ahead and have Henry on display. And then for his underframe, I did paint it black. So that way it looks a bit more realistic. I'll go ahead and set them up properly first before I go to answering questions. having these two on here reminds me of Crocodile Wagon and put Percy on there and have it coupled up behind Henry. Let me know. Yeah, tell me. So go ahead, tell me if you want me to put Percy on the well wagon behind Henry. Tell me. Do I like how the 2009 Thomas show looks on the play rail, Thomas? I don't think I've ever done that before. If it is the original one, then yes, it does look good, but the blue plastic coloring is off on the Trackmaster version. I don't like that Mattel uses the single design motor for the engines. It's lazy, especially with the redesign. And it just proves that they really do not care for the franchise's history. He might have been at that stream, but he may have missed it. Hey, that happens. Okay, so I have the 1 vote to get the well wagon for Percy. I will make this very bad joke. Bachmann, meet Bachmann. This is a Bachmann branch line crocodile wagon. And as you can tell, much like Henry's Tender, it does have the chain couplings. We will set Henry up for success. Couple him up to the flatbed. And before I get my little green gremlin, let me get my absolute favorite brake van. And now here comes my little green gremlin. And now he is headed to the works. I'll carefully move this Coltrane over. There we go. Do you think the earlier CGI season ruined the reputation for CGI Thomas? That may have just been the era. Nitrogen did really good. I wouldn't say really good. They did phenomenal work on rendering Sodor. They always had a different train, different cars. It was a variety. And I'm missing that. So if we go back to Nitrogen, I'm not essentially going to be upset because Sodor Island is a railway. It's going to have dirty engines. It's going to have dirty cars. So where's all my Tomy stuff? Here, and then put away in another closet to protect it from the sunlight. Usually I do have it in the background, yes, but now I'm focusing more on actual model railroading. So, British stuff. Do I have any of the Bachmann troublesome trucks? Yes, I do. I have trucks 1 and 2. I've removed their faces. And then I also have the little 5-plank green ones. Big kudos to my friend Henry NWR3 for helping me get a hold of those. Have I seen German Blue Trains Hurricane with Murdoch's wheels? Yes. I really actually did enjoy that custom. It kind of made Hurricane feel more like Hurricane to me as the decapod tank engine he's based on. What do I think about the 2019 to 2013 era of Trackmaster? Hit and miss. The nicks in the wheels were definitely a big issue for me because that was probably the height of my collecting. But I was able, like some of the engines like Den, Dart, Ferdinand, without having the nicks in the wheels. Belle was the unfortunate case where she has her nicks in the wheels, and I've just given up on trying to find one without the nicks in the wheels. Nitrogen engines had more weight. Yes, they actually believed in something called physics and gravity. A lot of things that Mattel neglects to remember. If they are watching, they need to start taking notes. Thank God my almost 2 years experience of being a server at a restaurant have helped me catch things before they fall and kill me. Now, where did I put? There it is. I'm gonna move these. I'm gonna unload this coal train and move them out of the way, just so that way you can get a better appreciation for Henry and little Percy. Okay, you are empty. This one is empty. And last but not least, you are empty. Favorite Hit Toys Thomas product? It's obvious, a tank. That was the best Trackmaster engine ever to be released for the new series. But then when they did Duke and Bertram, man, did they nail them perfectly. I mean, I did modify Duke slightly. I modified my model of Duke to have the red buffer beam on the front, and I also painted in the black of his mouth and the white on his teeth, so that way he could look a bit more like his Grace. But other than that, you know, it was just a simple little adjustment. Mattel was the savior of Thomas back in 2013. I don't think so. No way. Oh, I'm sorry, Miss. I didn't know you wanted Oliver to pull those cars. Sadly, I don't have any Great Western open wagons. I got these Southern Railway cars for the Q1 right here. This is the one from the NRM, so it is the limited edition version. I do have a review already written up. I'm just waiting for the right time to film him on like a white backdrop or something so I can really talk about the detail in that review. And then again, another part of it is I do not have a lot of 00 scale rolling stock, so I'm trying to build up on that first before I start working on any of the reviews for these engines, just because I want to give them more appropriate trains. I've got more freight cars than I do passenger coaches, and I do kind of want to expand on both before I get to work. E-Tanks one, yes, he did a lot of good stuff. I remember him. Do I like Thomas's new trucks? Yes, I do. It's a unique and fun episode, and it actually kind of highlights the realism. I would have loved for them to put a brake van on all of Thomas's trains, and you know, that would have been a bit more fun, but I'll digress on that. Do I wish Hero of the Rails had been made in the Gauge 1 models? Partially, because I would have loved to see how they would have built the Sodor Steamworks, how massive of a set they would have had to make. But at the same time, I kind of prefer the CGI, especially with Hero falling to pieces as Spencer's chasing him and Thomas. Seeing that for me was one of the greatest things I'd ever seen for the show. And when I saw that clip and I was playing it on YouTube, my mother asked me, "What's going on? Why is this happening?" I told her I didn't know. And when Hero of the Rails came out, she actually sat down and watched it with me. She said it was a good movie. She didn't like Spencer. But, what can I say? What do I think about Train Boy 54's customs? I don't particularly care for his channel. I've seen him getting terminated several times. The fact that he keeps coming back, he's like to compare it is like a cockroach. You keep killing the damn thing and it just keeps popping right back up. Favorite CGI movie and why, and least favorite. My least favorite CGI movie is Big World, Big Adventures. I'm not going to go into detail into that. Favorite, barring The Adventure Begins, hands down, and Sildur's Legend of the Lost Treasure. That had to be one of the best Thomas films of all time. Sailor John being voiced by the great and late John Hurt was phenomenal. They really brought heart into it. And I mean, sure, they could have done with one or two more rewrites, but it was just phenomenal. And as much as I don't like the musical numbers in Thomas and Friends, they were great. Ryan felt like he belonged. The cast they had was good, and just a variety of engines. Do I believe Sordor was once real? Yes, and season 4 really pushed that into me, especially with the Island song. I remember I was watching the Island song on YouTube downstairs with the digitally remastered video, and I think it was my dad who chuckled and made the comment saying, "When you were a little boy, you asked me if we could go there for vacation once." So I definitely believed Sodor was real at one point in my life. And I mean, I'm an adult now, and still to me, I feel like it is real. We just haven't discovered it yet. What do I think of Calling All Engines? It was ambitious. I liked it. I know my only question is, like, why didn't they have more characters in the background? I know they had a big plethora of characters that they could have used for the models, but at the same time, I can kind of see how they wanted to focus it severely on particular characters, particular engines. So not the best, but not the worst. I preferred the Tender-Powered Hank. He's got significantly more detail, and my Tender-Powered Hank is actually pretty powerful. I coupled up all of my express coaches that I have, including the 2 from the Shooting Star Gordon, and he pulled them easily without struggling. So he's one of my most powerful engines. My favorite Thomas song. Ooh, that's a toughie. The Island song. As cliche as it is, the Island song was one of my absolute favorites and still is to this day. I mean, I love Don't Judge a Book by its cover. James, the Splendid Red Engine is good. Never Never Give Up. Thomas's Anthem. All of the music, all of the songs that Mike O'Donnell and Junior Campbell wrote were phenomenal. And they still are. They've withstood the test of time. I do know of that channel, Too Much Thomas. I do believe they no longer create that content because their kids have outgrown Thomas and Friends. As far as the UK being the only place to still have running steam engines, on the main line, partially, it's because of their heritage. Over here in the USA, I know we've got like the 611, blah. And then obviously we got the Union Pacific locomotives, but in comparison, the UK runs passengers as a priority in comparison to freight. And over here, we run freight more predominantly as a priority than passengers. So it's a bit of hit and miss. Shining Time Station is one of the best things ever. It's what got me into Thomas and Friends. According to my mother, when I was a little boy, like an infant or a toddler, anytime Shining Time Station would come on, I'd be jumping and bouncing on the sofa in delight. So I really love Shining Time Station. If anyone can link me like a digitally restored version of the introduction with the song, I will be forever grateful. Thoughts on Season 8, Calling All Engines, and Season 9? Season 8 for me was the transition season. That's when they used to release Thomas still on VHS. I didn't know how I felt about it at the time. There are some episodes that I did like and I didn't like. Calling All Engines, as I said earlier, was a really good concept. Needed a little bit of work. Season 9 was pretty good. I like the fact that the engines were much more shiny, much more glossy. I just kind of started hating seeing, like, oh, here's green wagons. Now there's pale blue. Now there's these red ones. The engines are supposed to stand out, not the wagons. Thomas Wood is good for fire, is good for starting a fire in the fireplace. So there's my thoughts on it. Do you think Diesel... He should. I mean, he's already here at Vickerstown, but I don't know what they could do with him. Muffin Lover, there's a reason why I haven't gone to the Hera Museum. Oliver would never be found. I would take him away. But they do a significantly better job at taking care of the models than Drayton. I mean, at the same time, like, if they wanted to do display of the models, like when the Come Ride the Rails, that's what they should be doing at Drayton, not like, hey, we've got a set from the show and we're going to run the engines. No, don't do that. If they really want to emulate the Thomas and Friends world, they have Bachmann stuff here. Excuse me. Like, here, I will prove it with Henry. Just watch. He's such a good runner. Look at how smooth that is. And that's him with a load. If Mattel got their head out of their butt, introduce physics, introduce gravity, quit pandering to political correctness. And if the UN says you need to make it more diverse, tell the UN to get out of this. It's a kids' show. I remember I was talking, I think it was with Henry NWR3, he and I were talking, and they said if they want international characters, make the Sodor Steamworks like one of the most prestigious places to get a steam locomotive fixed in the world. I mean, you've got Doncaster, you got Crewe, you got Swindon, but make the Steamworks like the place some railroads say, hey, we bought a British engine, we need you to fix it for us. So that's my opinion, is they could bring international characters to Sodor and then have episodes focusing on that character. And back a little more. Back a little more. That ought to do it. You like the colored troublesome trucks from Playrail. Now I'm gonna disagree with you on that. I'm gonna disagree with you on that. And this is just because I am a little biased to a color. But these green troublesome trucks look nice. They look good. Otherwise, I do just want them in the standard gray livery. Do I plan on getting replica Bachmann engines just to be used for crashes? Probably not, because the only ones I think the only one who will genuinely crash is this little green gremlin who does not like to operate very well in reverse or running forwards. So he's probably going to be my little crash grunt. Stay on your flatbed. You don't deserve to run. Do I wish Hero of the Rails was Gauge 1? Not really. I answered this earlier. I would love to see the set they would have built for the Sodor Steamworks, just because I love seeing how massive the sets can get. But at the same time, the chase scene where Hero fell apart for me was beautifully done in CGI. I don't think it could have been done any better. Thoughts on Playrail, Gina and Lorenzo? Lorenzo and Beppe needed work. Beppe needs a 3D face, not a sticker face. And Gina needs different cargo cars and cargo, not little cutouts of Jack and Alfie. Do I want there to be another villain in Thomas and Friends? You can't really top villainy like Sailor John villainy. He was willing to blow Thomas up with dynamite. You can't get past that. Worst aspect to Mattel's toys is the simplicity. Yes, they are too simple. They are too straightforward and boring. And I think someone actually on Twitter revealed some of the behind-the-scenes product development that they saw where kids were struggling. If they saw the kids struggling, they should have tried to figure out how to work with that. What controller do I use, Emmanuel? For DC, I have an Athearn, just a standard Athearn throttle. For DCC, I have the Kato version of the Digitrax Zephyr throttle. I don't know if I can get anyone to install DCC on my Bachmann Thomas & Friends stuff, but if the British Bachmann releases of Thomas & Friends from USA over there are going to be DCC fitted, I'll probably buy those. We all have the merchandise from the 90s and the 2000s, but in cheap form. Some of it was cheap, some of it was not, so make sure you think about it that way. The green troublesome truck, yeah, no. Yeah, like the cars that came with Diesel 10 and Lady, I will say they were specially made because it was the first and only time that Thomas has ever been like on the big screen before Sorter's Legend of the Lost Treasure. And that one was a really big jump up for this franchise. Funniest episode of Thomas and Friends. It's a toss-up between Mike's Whistle and Useful Railway. Useful Railway got memed into Rex Vivo, but Mike's Whistle made me laugh because my brother, who doesn't really watch Thomas, sat down and watched the whole episode. And he called Mike the grumpiest little turd he had ever seen, ever, in a kid's show, which made me laugh. Mattel, read Tom Man 256's comment for me and actually do what they're saying. Do you think Playrail should have released other characters with the Steam Along? I don't really know, to be honest with you. I mean, it would have worked better for a tender engine because you can obviously get it done that way, but I don't think Steam Along was that popular with the kids. It's not like Hornby's live Steam 00 scale models where they have like the Mallard or the Flying Scotsman that run on actual Steam made by the engine. Which, if anyone has that double-tendered Flying Scotsman in 00 scale, I'm looking for it. So, but it was a unique concept, and I'm glad they just kept it to Thomas because it's not something kids would really understand on taking care of. So the Steam Along concept, good idea, just not good for kids. And I do think I got a message from someone on Twitter. Oh. Thank you, Tom Man. I'm going to quickly follow you back on Twitter. That way you can DM me for all your needs. Do you think classic Thomas characters having characters not liking each other? Yes, because it shows it's like a family. You have to deal with them. Thomas and Percy always fought, and Toby was the one stuck in the middle, laughing about it, up into an extent. Then you have Edward being the voice of reason for some of the other engines. He's one of the biggest voices of reason for Bill and Ben. Hunt the Truck was a perfect episode that showed that. He knew how to get them to realize, hey, you need to stop fooling around. And then Gordon, you just have being like the arrogant older brother who always gets his comeuppance. And the flip face was a good concept. It's a good concept. I think kids would really have liked that because you go from, like a smiling face to a different expression, and it adds more realism or another level of depth to their playtime. Favorite Trackmaster 2 item? For the engine, it has to be Flying Scotsman, obviously because it's the only way he's been made. Playrail. And then rolling stock-wise, it has to be Jerome. I'm sad and disappointed that they did not release Judy, but I just have 2 of Jerome to make up Judy and Jerome. I think I might end up selling those 2 as well. I don't know yet. But Fisher-Price did do some good Trackmaster stuff. Ryan and Jerome was probably one of the best packs I've ever purchased. All right, you guys, I think I'll make this a fair shot. When my cup runs out of water, I'll end the stream because I can't talk and kill myself from a lack of hydration. Thank you, eBay. Not like I needed to know you need to send me something. Okay. Tom Man, sorry about that silence. I have just sent you a message on Twitter about hurricanes, so if you can reach back out to me, I'd appreciate that. What character would you like to have a different facial expression? James. I would have loved to have Bachmann James with the classic model series screaming face. The stuff you could do with that would be phenomenal. Misael, my most recent train purchase has been a Hornby N2, number 1744, the one that's actually preserved in the GNR apple green livery, and then a support coach for the Princess Elizabeth. I also did just order Bachmann's Ransman Rapier 45-ton steam breakdown crane in GWR gray. Oops. Have you seen the video where Mattel is redesigning? No, I have not, and I don't think I will watch it. Would I rather have a world without Thomas or a world without HOOO? No, Thomas. Sorry. I love trains. Thomas just kind of spurred my interest more into trains, but I can't live without 00 scale. HO or 00 scale. I mean, you can see it here. This is a scale trains water tender for the big boy. These are two of the support cars for the big boy, the Art Lockman, and then the flag car, and then I've got the big boy. The thoughts on the new Annie and Claire Bell with Thomas. It only took them almost 10 years to realize that a basic train set with no gimmicky decorations is what kids want. It took them almost 10 years to realize that. They're not really good at doing a market study, are they? It's great, but way too late, you know? Thoughts on the Tomiko range? I actually do have the Tomy Amtrak diesel and 3 of its coaches. I am going to be selling those off probably to Trainstar Fun. I'm going to reach out to him via email. If he is interested in them, I will sell them to him. Just that way he has something unique in his collection. Excuse me. But, you know, the Tomiko range was fantastic. If you really want to see like a good set of F units with the coaches, go to UC Weapons channel. I know he's got a long rake of those coaches and a good few amount of those F units. Opinion on Crown Thomas or Animal Percy, please destroy them in a fire. Well, no, they're plastic. Please recycle them into something useful. Trackmaster Gold Thomas. Funny thing is I actually watched Leo Kim video about the Gold Thomas and like analytics on Thomas and Friends earlier this morning. And I have to agree with him. All of Thomas, like his tanks, the cabin, everything with the smoke box door, and maybe even the wheels, should have been that nice shiny gold color and not just the smoke box. That really would have made him stand out some more. Kind of like what they're doing with Percy, James, Thomas, and Nia, making them metallic. That's what they should have done with Gold Thomas. Not just, oh, well, the smoke box door will do. We're starting to get there. We're starting to get there. But I guess I'm gonna ask this of you guys, because I know we've been averaging around 6 to 8 viewers throughout this almost 3-hour long stream. If you don't follow me on Twitter, I'm gonna ask that you just do, or you can just shoot me a tweet or something saying that you were here. I'm gonna be posting a few polls on my Twitter as time goes on, because I do have an announcement video up in the works. It's one that not a lot of people are gonna really appreciate. But I do want to have more feedback on you guys. Like, I know that you want to see more play rail from me. I'm going to try to focus it on a particular item, a particular set of videos for the play rail stuff. But I just want more feedback from you guys. I know that a lot of people have been asking about the rail fanning on Sodor series. If you all want me to bring that back, go ahead, just tell me, and I'll try to make up sets that I feel would work out. But just, keep telling me, please. So I think Thomas is at this point, at Thomas Worthy at 75 years. If they hadn't gone in the direction with Big World, Big Adventures, yes. Now, no. They really shouldn't have gotten to this point. Anything from the Tomiko range is difficult to find. Misael, I will say that. First thoughts when Mattel started announcing making more normal sets, kind of like I said with the 2020 Thomas Annie and Clarabelle, it only took them almost 10 years to realize this, where you don't need to have some super big gimmicky action thing. Look at the play rail sets. I mean, barring Thomas and Merlin at the coal hopper, look at the Hero and Thomas at the station. It's a simple little train set. It has a passing siding. It has a stop-go switch. It has a shed. Kids like that. They get to play. They get to really enjoy. They get to control what happens on that railroad. That's what a train set is. You think Playrail should release a 75th item like they did with the 60th and 65th? But what would they release is the question. Okay, so I'm having a vote for the rail fanning on Sodor series to return. Okay, like I said, I am going to be putting a poll up on, well, several polls up on my Twitter about the play rail kind of things. I'm going to be asking ones of videos you guys want to see from me. Remakes will be once in a blue moon just because setting up the sets is difficult. Thoughts on the 2.0 track? It is realistic. I do appreciate that, but I dislike how noisy it is. I mean, it's a good system that kids can put together and take apart easily. It's a sturdy, durable system, but it's just too noisy. Favorite anniversary about a release date? I really, really want this engine. It's probably the first time I've ever wanted a Bachmann Thomas model very badly after Oliver and Toad. Trackmaster 2-track is good, and I mean, for someone who's a realist like me, I would want to paint the ties brown. Every individual tie. I'd want to paint the rails silver. That way it's like I have realistic track with a train. But I'm not saying it's a bad system. It could be better. The 1.0 track was, so this is going to be from the hit toy era. So that's about 2005 to 2010. It was big and it was bulky. I know they tried to do a level of detail, but it was just a little too cumbersome. I know I sold off all of mine in favor of the play rail track. The Tomix N-Scale Thomas range was actually pretty good before they revamped it. I mean, they had Henry, they had a lot of characters available, but they were all very accurate. I know I was interested in getting it, and when I was in Japan, my dad tried to sell me on it because it was Thomas and it was trains, but I wasn't keen on it. It was just too expensive. I mean, James with his tender and 2 trucks was costing almost $200, and that's after the tax deduction. With the recent announcement of Season 24's Specials Marvelous Machinery and the Royal Engine, the content first, toys later, it's a hit and miss. What I would have appreciated, and I think they did this with Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure and The Great Race, was that the toys came out no more than a week before the movie. That way parents could get it, and then it's like, oh, well, where's the movie? All of a sudden, there's the movie on the shelf in the electronics. So In my case, I got the Great Race before I ever touched Flying Scotsman. And I managed to find one of Scotsman, and that was the very last time I ever saw it. I have heard of Roblox. I don't play Roblox. The computer that I have is a MacBook, so it's not very good for gaming so much as it is for editing. Thomas should be retired only if Mattel does not realize they need to pull themselves out of this graveyard they have buried themselves in. If they realize we need to stop trying to compete with Chuck, bringing Thomas to what it was, then that'll work, because Thomas was a show that parents could sit down and with kids. It wasn't like, oh, it's some baby program. And you know what, if that's what the references they pulled up, like with the Rodinator or Thomas doing the Back to the Future thing, it was like, hey, parents, look, we're relevant. No, that's not going to get the parents, and that's going to make them say, what are you doing? We need to bring Thomas back to its roots. Again, like, look at Carson Marenka's stuff. He's done stories that are like TV series episodes for the Railway series. And, you know, my oldest brother was like, he enjoyed the way Carson Marenka executed them, but he said he didn't care for Richie. He's like, oh, they just shoved him in. I said, you need to watch the first episode and then move into it. So it just depends. Like, if Mattel really cared about the franchise, really cared about making a profit out of it, they should really look at users and fans who know what Thomas is and should bring them into the team, not pander to political correctness or include diversity. Diversity is good, but when you're just shoving it down the throats and saying, like, hey, look, we have an engine from Africa, we have one from Italy, we have one from Brazil, we have an engine from every country and every continent in the world, that's not going to do anything for Thomas. And on that note, my water cup is empty. My throat is dry. We've been here for 2.5+ hours. I want to thank you guys for coming on by to just literally chat, relax, and chill. It was great to have y'all here. You take care, Tom, man. Okay, man? And I mean, you've got me on Twitter now, so we can keep chatting if you'd like. And I will agree with you, Junction. Calling all engines was good, but I'm going to cut the stream here. I'm thirsty. My stomach is trying to give Texas an earthquake because it is apparently hungry, so I'm going to see if I can't stir up something to eat. I hope y'all have a safe and blessed Easter weekend. It is Good Friday. Tomorrow is Holy Saturday, and then we got Easter Sunday. Please do look after yourselves. Do look after your family, your friends, your loved ones. Reach out to anyone you know during this pandemic. If you do want to just chill and chat, you know, reach out to me on Twitter. If you want to do like an audio or video chat, let me know on Twitter, and I'll be more than happy to try and accommodate with you. But thanks again for coming on out. This is Hank American Engine, and I'll see you in the next one.